satisfaction out of.
That ain't me to him. He thought this was normal, but to me and the other women that he did this to, it was not normal, it was not welcome, and it was certainly not consensual.
What he did to me was a crime. He broke the law.
But, very notably, Cuomo isn't the only person facing fallout right now from the same report. Cuomo's number one aide, Melissa DeRosa, announced that she was resigning after the report found she not only contributed to the toxic work environment, but also had efforts to retaliate against Lindsay Boylan, the first woman who came out against Cuomo. And now, just this morning, Roberta Kaplan, the chairwoman of Time's Up and co-founder of its legal defense fund, resigned from that group, literally created to fight sexual abuse, because the inquiry found that she had also helped Cuomo's effort to discredit Boylan. So this is not only massive for Cuomo, but those who have been close to him. Yeah, ultimately, that is where we are right now, right? This is kind of the top-level highlight of the past few days. This is something that we're going to be keeping our eyes on. With this, I would love to know your thoughts on any aspect of the story. Also, do you think that he will finally resign? Is he going to be impeached? What do you think will happen? What do you want to happen? While you type that out, I'd love to know your thoughts in those comments down below, because yes, this is a news show, and it's also a conversation. As always, thanks for watching, like, and subscribe, and all the good stuff. My name's Bill Franco. You just been built in. I love your faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns a public health crisis that's exposed the failure of American institutions. No, not that one. Not that one either. That's a good point, but not actually this time. Yep, there it is, the opioid epidemic. If you're thinking, hold on, didn't you already do a show about this? You're wrong. We've actually done two of them. We thought it would be worth doing a third installment of the pandemic and illicit fentanyl, to the point that last year, nearly 70,000 people died from opioid overdoses. That is the highest annual death toll ever. And second, you might have seen a bunch of headlines recently about trials and settlements taking place around the country. There have been so many of them, it can genuinely be hard to keep track. But we want to focus on just one company tonight, Purdue Pharma, whose rollout of OxyContin arguably fueled the opioid crisis. We've talked about their relentless push to sell OxyContin before, but more material has come out in the last couple of years, including this spectacular glimpse into a 1997 motivational sales meeting for the company's drug reps. That was Purdue's VP of Sales performing an Oxy-themed cover of Shout. And that has got to be one of the most upsetting decisions from the late 90s, right up there with Give Every Lovely Child an Electronic Imaginary Friend Who Will Immediately Die, and Let's Set Every Sitcom in New York City and make sure the Twin Towers are prominently featured in the transition shots. Really remind people they're there. Purdue Pharma is owned by the Sackler family. In recent years, Purdue and the Sacklers have found themselves being investigated by the DOJ and facing thousands of lawsuits filed by state and local governments, Native American tribes, hospitals, and individuals. And they've spent years working with an army of lawyers attempting to negotiate their way out of all of it, which has resulted in two major resolutions, including this big news from last October.
It's being hailed by the federal government as a major victory against a company whose drug, OxyContin, is part of the public health crisis of opioid addiction that has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. The maker of OxyContin admitted to defrauding regulators and paying illegal kickbacks to doctors.
It's true, Purdue has pled guilty to multiple felonies. And it is weird to hear news that sounds so genuinely good. It'd be really nice to get more of that once in a while, like no one wants to send two weather events for the next few hours, or billionaire goes to space and dies there. You know, something heartwarming. That guilty plea is actually part of a much larger plan that we'll get into later, involving the company also filing for bankruptcy, and just this past March, submitting a reorganization plan that would end Sackler ownership. And the thing is, this might all sound like a major victory, that the Sacklers are finally experiencing significant consequences. But unfortunately, that could not be farther from the truth. So tonight, with the bankruptcy's confirmation hearing scheduled to begin later this week, let's talk about the Sackler family, how hard they've been fighting to defend their name, the details of the deal that they're attempting to strike, and why the whole thing is a bunch of bullshit. Let's start with a basic question. Who are the Sackers? Well, the Sackers are the descendants of three brothers, Arthur, Raymond, and Mortimer, who in 1952 bought the company that would eventually become Purdue Pharma. And while Arthur's branch of the family sold their stake decades ago before OxyContin was developed, the heirs of Raymond and Mortimer both benefited from, and in some cases actively managed, Purdue's boom years on selling opioids. Many Sackers either worked at the company or served on its board. And as the Massachusetts AG points out, some of them were pretty hands-on.
They were in the boardroom. They owned the company. We have emails and memos that show the direct control that they exercised over sales and marketing. One of the Sackler family members went so far as to want to get in the car with Purdue sales reps and drive around to visit doctors' offices.
It's true, and doing a drug rep ride-along is about as hands-on as you can get. And quick side note there, just spare a thought for the sales rep in question, because sure, they too contributed to the opiate prescription of America, probably led to their own local mini epidemic, but nobody, not even Hitler, should have to sit in the car with their boss and talk about what exactly? The weather? And then when you run out of things to say about it, do what? Sit in silence? And then say, actually, I can go for a bathroom break right now, and have him say, I'm fine, and feel free to stop. And then what? You stop? And he waits in the car? And then when you get back, he looks inconvenienced? I would sort of throw myself out of the car in the middle of the freeway. Now, the man responsible for that ride-along was Richard Sackler, who was actually president of the company for years. And yet, interestingly, it is hard to find images of him other than that one. In fact, while the Sacklers have relished slapping their family name on institutions, as individuals, they're trying to stay out of the spotlight. When Richard Sackler gave a deposition in 2015, Purdue fought hard to keep him private. That is why, in our last piece, we had a bunch of actors playing him to convey important things, like the fact that he said, I don't know, more than 100 times. Now, thankfully, that deposition has since been released, so you can finally watch the man in action.
How much money has Purdue Frederick Overton Pharma made off the sale of OxyContin? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know. I don't know. But I just don't know.
Admit it, the guy just oozes charisma. Although, honestly, having actually seen it, I think I prefer the version that we made.
How much money has Purdue Frederick or Purdue Pharma made off the sale of OxyContin? I don't know. How many Purdue entities are there?
I don't know.
Yeah, that is just objectively better. Now, while Richard was the most involved, he was not alone. His cousin Kathy Sackler was an officer of the company for years, and even claimed in emails that developing OxyContin was her idea. Although, despite that fact, when Kathy was called before Congress last year and asked to apologize for her role in the opioid crisis, she didn't exactly do that.
I have tried to figure out, is there anything that I could have done differently, knowing what I knew then, not what I know now? And I have to say that I can't, there's nothing that I can find that I would have done differently.
Okay, first, that is definitely not an apology, Kathy, and second, come on. Nearly a year into a pandemic, that is just an unacceptable at-home setup. On your laptop, run a couple of books, upgrade your router, and while you're at it, one click of ring light. So Kathy, that's books, router, ring lights. It's the little Zoom tricks that we've all learned that'll help you look your best as you absolve yourself of responsibility for a massive public health crisis. But the Sacklers haven't just been appearing at congressional hearings. Some have been trying hard to rehabilitate their image and even paint themselves as victims. Take David Sackler. He's Richard's son and a former board member himself. He gave an interview to Vanity Fair featuring this portrait, which, by the way, looks like it to be a poster for natural family planning in a Christian health clinic. And in it he complained, my 4-year-old came home from nursery school and asked, why are my friends telling me that our family's work is killing people? Which just does not seem remotely credible. For a start, everyone knows that is not how 4-year-olds talk. You're missing 8 ums, 15 ands, 3 times they can bring out a breath for no reason, and 5 complete trail-offs. I call bullshit on that whole fake anecdote. But that is just the beginning. David's branch of the family was also involved in the launch of a pro-Sackler website that aims to correct the record called judgeforyourselves.info, which is shocking for a number of reasons. First, because billionaires for some reason chose not to splurge for the .com, but also because of just how petty the website is. It features a list of outlets that mistakenly used the brand's name Oxycontin when they meant the generic oxycodone, including a college newspaper, and over 7 hours of video presentations in which a catastrophically uncharismatic lawyer attempts to disprove every legal argument ever made against the Sacklers and Purdue. This terrible website of self-serving nonsense has been promoted by, among others, Joss Sackler. That is David's wife. You may remember from her failure to face the camera in Vanity Fair. Now, even though Joss isn't directly involved in the family business, she actually talks more publicly than most Sacklers. She has a clothing line called LBB, or Le Boulodog Ignorant, which translates to the wine-making bulldogs, and is an offshoot of her members-only wine and social club. Joss was also once interviewed for Town and Country, where she complained about how unfairly the press treats both her and her family, noting that a previous article wouldn't refer to her as Dr. Joss Sackler, despite her telling them she had a PhD in linguistics, and going on to say they're going to regret fucking with a linguist. And that is one hell of a claim, Joss, because nobody is intimidated by linguists. You're basically an English major who wasted more time. I'll fuck with a linguist all day long, I'll show you. How do you make 2 proper nouns into a double negative? Joss and David. Boom. Linguist fucked with. So to recap, it is pretty clear some Sacklers have been working extremely hard to try and engender public sympathy, but the real battle the family's been fighting has been a legal one. And that is what I want to spend the rest of this piece talking about, because while the details of what the Sacklers are doing are incredibly complicated, the end result is both simple and absolutely infuriating. And let's start with that deal you heard about earlier, where Purdue pled guilty to 3 felonies. It sounded like some good news, but there are some major asterisks there, because while the company pled guilty to those charges, no individuals did, and certainly no Sacklers, and that alone is a big deal to them. In fact, just watch as Kathy jumped to remind everyone of that fact during their congressional hearing.
Sackler family through Purdue has 3 felony convictions, but no one's in jail, and it has its billions still.
The Sackler family doesn't have a felony conviction. Purdue Pharma has a felony conviction. I'm an individual person.
Okay, hold on. I do get the point that she's making there, but the fact is, Purdue is made up of individual people who control it. Think of Purdue like Lamb Chop. If Lamb Chop threatened to kill the president on live TV, Lamb Chop wouldn't get in trouble or go to prison. Shari Lewis would. Why? Because Lamb Chop is a puppet who does whatever the fuck Shari Lewis tells Lamb Chop to do. Now, the Sacklers might argue that Purdue's controlled body are still facing consequences, but here is the thing. Are they? Are they really? And that brings us back to the bankruptcy that I mentioned earlier, because the bankruptcy deal that Purdue has proposed is the vehicle through which the Sacklers are likely to escape any true accountability. Very basically, Purdue was buried in thousands of lawsuits, and rather than fighting them all separately, the company filed for bankruptcy, negotiated to resolve all of its debts in one place. This proposed deal requires, among other things, the Sacklers relinquish ownership of Purdue, which will be turned into a public benefit company whose profits will go toward fighting the opioid epidemic. Now, the company claims the bankruptcy will deliver more than $10 billion in value. But a few things about that. First, the Sacklers themselves are only contributing around $4.3 billion to that settlement, which I know does sound like a lot, until you learn the family has assets of around $11 billion, which is a massive amount of money. But I guess that is what happens when your company makes an addictive product and pushes its employees to... I just saw that 10 minutes ago, and somehow it's gotten even worse. Now also, you might want to know, regarding the Sackler family's net worth, a fair amount of it was built up in a very particular period, because from 2008 to 2017, even as the opioid epidemic was keeping into high gear, more than $10 billion was transferred out of the company for the benefit of the family. Now, the Sacklers fiercely maintained that those transfers were proper, but the DOJ alleged that they were made to hinder future creditors. In other words, to get the money out of the company so that the Sacklers could protect it. and they found some pretty damning evidence, particularly from David Sackler, who seemed to directly express fears over lawsuits taking the family money back in 2007, writing in an email, "We're rich, for how long? Until which suits get through to the family." And David, buddy, don't send that kind of thing over email. I mean, don't send it a mail, don't speak it, don't think it, and ideally don't receive an upbringing that would plant a thought in your mind. But bare minimum, keep it out of the permanent legal record. And you're thinking, well, so they transform. Because here is the really insidious part. Well, there are approximately 400 civil suits that do name the Sacklers themselves. The family is insisting they will only agree to this settlement if they get what is called a non-consensual third-party release. And this thing is bullshit. Because if they get it, all current lawsuits against the Sacklers evaporate, and no future lawsuits can be filed, meaning that the Sacklers, who didn't file for personal bankruptcy themselves, remember, are basically off the hook. And it sounds weird to you that a company can declare bankruptcy, and then a bunch of individuals get shielded from liability. That's because it is how these third-party releases at all. But Purdue very carefully chose one that they knew probably would. A few months before filing for bankruptcy, Purdue changed one of its official corporate addresses to one in White Plains, New York, at which it's never conducted business, and where there is only one bankruptcy judge who, completely coincidentally, has supported third-party releases in the past, which is all a pretty obvious tactic, isn't it? It's not like they moved to White Plains for any other reason. If you look up things to do in White Plains, the first result you get, and this is true, is a TripAdvisor page recommending a helicopter tour of New York City, which is just incredible. Come visit White Plains, where you can immediately leave and go look at somewhere more interesting to live. And the Sacklers' third-party release is comprehensive, stating that the release party shall be conclusively, absolutely, unconditionally, irrevocably, fully, finally, forever, and permanently released from any and all claims of any kind from the beginning of time. And this is a list of every person and entity they want covered. It contains over 200 companies and 200 more trusts where the Sacklers have tucked their money away. This release is ludicrously broad, which is probably why the AGs of 9 states and DC are still objecting to it, and 2 branches of the DOJ have said it violates the US Constitution and specifically violates due process because it deprives individuals of an opportunity to be heard. And yet, incredibly, despite all of this, it is widely assumed that this whole deal is going to go ahead. And while it sounds completely terrible to me, I will say at least one person thinks that it's actually a very good thing. Although I will say that one person is Purdue's current chairman.
This is a milestone in public health history. Never before have you seen this amount of money, $10 billion, being devoted to opioid abatement. And it's only available through this plan, assuming we can get it approved. And I think when people think about it, they will come around to the notion, well, I might have liked something slightly different, but this is certainly a lot better than going into endless, costly litigation that may end up with no proceeds going to anybody.
Okay, no. I might have liked something different, but this is better than nothing. It's what you say when your dad insists on having dinner at Chili's, not when you're talking about the fate of a company that poisoned a generation, which, incidentally, is, I believe, Chili's current slogan. And here's the thing. That man is not even entirely wrong. The longer these lawsuits drag on, the more money will get wasted in court, and an increasingly large percentage of it will go to lawyers rather than victims, because right now, under this settlement, claimants could receive payments from $3,500 to $48,000, which, yes, feels wildly insufficient, but some families are reluctantly willing to take what they can get. Although I will say others, like this woman who suddenly became addicted to opioids after being prescribed OxyContin as a high school student, are furious that this is what it's come to.
We want our voices heard, not interpreted by the court like they have been. I don't want somebody saying that I'm so happy with the settlement, as I hear at practically every hearing. I'm a mom. I'm not happy with any of this. And I know hundreds of moms that aren't either in families.
Exactly. For some families or victims, the opportunity to have their voices heard is priceless, which is to say, a fuckable lot more than $48,000. Some have even called into court, only to be told it wasn't the right forum. One woman called into the bankruptcy hearing and said, I lost my brother tragically at the TB epidemic in 2012. I would like to speak in memory of my brother. To which the judge replied, I hold hearings on what is scheduled before me. I don't think that this is the proper forum to do this. And the thing is, he is right. But this also may be the last forum these families have to be heard. Look, it might well be true that this is the best deal we can get under our current system, but the fact that that's the case doesn't speak well to this deal, or indeed the system itself. And if you're thinking, well, the Sackers are paying so much already, what more do you want? I'm not sure that is the right way to think about this, because I would argue that when your family's company recklessly sold a product as damaging as OxyContin, the question might not be how many billions is it right for you to pay. It's how many billions is it right for you to keep? And I would argue no billions. I'm afraid it somehow gets one step worse, because the way this settlement is structured, it's actually hurting the Sacklers even less than you might think. That 4.3 billion that they agreed to pay is spread out over 9 years, with the largest payments coming toward the end of that period, which means they could make that money up in interest and investments and never have to touch the principal. In fact, when the Sacklers are done paying in 2030, they will probably be richer than they are today. So I guess the answer to we're rich for how long is, oh, don't worry, forever, David, because it seems that's how the fucking system works. Unfortunately, when it comes to accountability for the Sacklers, this is probably it. Because while technically they could still be criminally charged, nobody expects that to happen. And it's just infuriating that things are set to end so comfortably for a family that has made so much at the expense of so many. Although I will say there is one tiny positive here, and that is that Purdue and the Sacklers have always heavily valued secrecy. But this deal requires the creation of an online public repository that will eventually contain 30 million documents, including deposition videos and the Sacklers company's emails, which is undeniably a good thing. But even with that, let's admit, we're not getting anything approaching justice here. And the Sacklers, in sparing no expense, seem to have successfully fought their way out of this problem. Well, not no expense, because again, despite spending millions on lawyers and in creating a website filled with legal propaganda, they still somehow couldn't scrape up the $2,500 required to buy the .com for it. And the reason I happen to know exactly how much it costs is because that is how much we spent to buy it. It is true, we bought judgeforyourself.com, and I know that it does absolutely nothing to even the scales here, but it does give me the tiniest bit of comfort to imagine that it might irritate the Sacklers a bit to know when people go to that site in the future, this is what they're going to see.
Hi, it's me, the real Richard Sackler. Welcome to the premier source of information on the Sackler family this can find on the internet. It's called judgeforyourself.com. But you gotta get the .com. I mean, what kind of fucking idiot would set up on a word website and not buy the .com? Anyway, if you want the truth, you've come to the right place. So click around, okay? Get a sense of what my terrible family has done. And, maybe we'll throw in some makeup tidbits. I don't know, maybe how to make a great pesto chicken. Anyway, there's some great buttons that can press around, and you'll get there somehow. And best of luck to you, all right? Bye-bye.
Thank you, Richard Sackler. This new website lets you judge for yourselves whether the Sacklers got off too easy, which they absolutely did. On it, you can see Richard Sackler's full deposition, all of our episodes about the opioid crisis, and there is even a link that will eventually direct you to the document repository the moment it is launched. Also, because the families of those impacted by the Sacklers have always been heard, there's some excerpts on the website of what some of them wanted to say. All of this will be up as long as we own the domain, and this is at least something that the Sacklers cannot throw their dirty money at and make it go away. Which is not to say that it isn't for sale at all, Sackler family. It is available for a price, let's say $10 billion.
countries that treat their people so much better? Why other countries treat their people
This
so much
episode and
better?
others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help me make more content like this, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. I'm going to say something that will probably offend many of my viewers. Let me preface this by saying that I, as an American, include myself in the following statement. Americans are quite possibly the most willfully ignorant people on the face of the planet.
Why would anyone get triggered by that? It's literally true. If you get mad at this, you're a fucking idiot. Like, we are. We are literally the dumbest hogs. We have the most resources, we have the most capability of helping our own, and refuse to do so, and very clearly advocate and agitate for a government that will openly refuse to do that.
We have access to the sum total of all human knowledge, yet our understanding of the world rarely extends beyond our own country. And even then, the majority of Americans believe in a vision of the country that does not actually exist. It's not that we're stupid, we just tend to blindly accept that the US is the greatest place on earth, and therefore don't see any reason to educate ourselves about the realities of the rest of the world. In this episode, we're going to pull back the curtain on how America actually compares to other countries, and consider why the richest country on earth fails to treat its people with dignity and fairness. I'm going to provide a list of important topics, then for each item we'll compare the American.
Did the Biden team contact you about running a Get Out the Vote ad campaign? I don't think so. What do they want? I don't think they did.
Experience with that of citizens from other nations. Hopefully by providing a side-by-side comparison, you'll be able to see the stark contrast between how most Americans see their country and how it really stacks up against the competition. To give you an idea of just how skewed the American perception of our country really is, let's start with a pretty shocking example. Compensation for what are considered low-skilled jobs. We'll take the quintessential American company, McDonald's. McDonald's is the world's largest restaurant chain by revenue.
Dude, are we seriously about to watch another video about how great it is that Sweden pays their citizens to take a shit? Yeah, until every fucking moron that finds its way into my chat that, like, unironically comes in here just to troll gets the fucking message that, yes, it is tight, and that, yes, that is the right way to go about it. Not only just paid to take a shit, but also paid to go get sloshed for, during, like, their annual 3-month fucking summer break, okay? Ritmade.
Operates in over 100 countries and serves over 69 million customers every day. As of 2018, McDonald's was the second largest private employer, with 1.7 million employees, behind Walmart's 2.3 million. How many times have you heard someone refer to McDonald's jobs or workers?
Okay, actually, I don't know if Sweden gets 3 months, but most European countries have really generous and really long, like at least 2 months. This says I have 6-week paid vacation per year here in Sweden.
Derogatory manner. For some reason, people who work at McDonald's are seen as inferior or lazy or have any number of other unfair and unkind assessments leveled at them. This probably stems from the old notion of flipping burgers being a job anyone can perform. But the animosity towards low-wage workers has grown significantly in the past few decades. And in America, McDonald's workers really do suffer a low wage.
My man said, wait, you don't have 3 months summer break in the USA? Whoa! What break, dude? We don't even have paid sick leave, dude. What are you talking about? What? What do you mean a break? What? He thought we got summer break, dude? Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh my God, that was a good one. Fuck, oh, you meant for school? Yeah, no, schools haven't. Wait, you don't actually have paid sick leave or paid vacation at all? It just depends on your job, but most jobs don't, no. Bro, people are actually shocked. Are you guys serious? Wait, oh my god, motherfuckers are shocked. They're like, wait, you don't have paid break? Are you serious or are you trolling? You didn't know this? What happens if you're sick? What happens if you're sick, you think? You fucking suck it up and sneeze on a burgle, okay? That's what happens when you're sick. In New Zealand, we get 5 sick days and 4 weeks a year to leave at every job.
Simplest one. America's most quick.
Yeah, what do you mean what happens when you get sick? Currently, there are no federal legal requirements for paid sick leave. For companies subject to the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, the act does require unpaid sick leave. Okay? FMLA provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave for certain medical situations for either the employee or a member of the employee's immediate family. In many instances, paid leave may be substituted for unpaid FMLA leave. Employees are eligible to take family and medical leave if they have worked for their employer for at least 12 months and have worked for at least 1,250 hours over the previous 12 months and work for a location where at least 50 employees are employed by the same employer within 75 miles. Keep voting for Republicans, baby! Woo! Right to work, baby! I love the way that sounds, motherfucker! Hell yeah! Why the fuck would I pay union dues when I can get a new TV? That's what Big Boss Daddy told me. Bitch, in America, even if you get pregnant, like, we only have recently secured, like, maternal leave.
What is it then?
Even that was up to question. My girlfriend's a nurse and didn't even get paid time off when she had COVID because she had only been there for 3 months. Oh yeah, wait till you find out about pregnancy leave. Like, it's like 3 months, right? If you can get it. Salary in the U.S. for high-skilled workers is way higher than EU salary. How is that a counter to, like, anything we're talking about? Like, and it's because of fucking idiots like that. You understand? It's because of idiots like that we don't ever have progress. Because idiots like that are like, nah, dude, actually, like, fuck everyone else, I'm gonna get mine. Meanwhile, if you have that kind of fucking brain disease, you're probably never going to be a fucking high-salaried skilled worker anyway. So shut the fuck up. And even then, it's not even true, but we're not even going to talk about that. It's like when fucking people talk about, you know, like, the top marginal tax rate being like 70% plus in the Scandinavian countries and how that's communism and devastating. Meanwhile, Norway has more billionaires per capita than we fucking do in the United States. You know what I mean? Or so does Sweden. Oh, their taxes are so fucking crazy. It's like, well, why the fuck do they have more billionaires than we do then, per capita? List of minimum annual leave by... Look at that minimum. Look how blue that gets over there. America. No mandatory vacation or no data at all. USA, baby. Oh, shit. In the majority of nations, including all industrialized nations except the United States, advances in employee relations have seen the introduction of statutory agreements for minimum employee leave from work. That is the amount of entitlement to paid vacation and public holidays. Several companies will offer contractually more time depending on the sector. Companies in the law may also differ as to whether public holidays are counted as a part of the minimum leave. There is no federal or state statutory minimum paid vacation or paid public holidays. Paid leave is at the discretion of the employers to its employees. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 77% of private employers offer paid vacation to employees. Full-time employees earn on average 10 vacation days after 1 year of service. Similarly, 77% of private employers give their employees paid time off during public holidays. On average, 8 holidays per year. Some employers offer no vacation at all. The average number of paid vacation days offered by private employers is 10 days after 1 year of service, 14 days after 5 years, 17 days after 10 years, and 20 days after 20 years. So like in Norway or Finland, if you get 20 paid vacation days, you can only get that after 20 years of toiling the land in your serfdom, okay? Your feudal lord will offer you the same amount of fucking benefits only after you have given your soul to the company for 20 fucking years, dude. A system I have no problem with. This is the perfect system. Most jobs in the U.S. have both paid sick leave and vacation or management, or jobs that require 4-year degrees. Oh, for sure. Productivity strong, brother. Hell yeah. Even my child neoliberal hellhole is better than your shithole. Hey, Rumbo's party. There's a reason for that, actually. The reason why Chile might come across, despite being destroyed by neoliberalism, the reason why Chile comes across as having stronger labor protections in certain fields is because you have a higher rate of unionization in your country that has been devastated by our economists and our economic theories, okay? Even in your country of Chile or Chile, your unionization rate in your workforce is 15%. That's 4 percentage points higher than the American unionized labor force. In our country, we got 10%. In Chile, they have 15%. Just always remember that. That's why when I say if you want to destroy America, then vote Republican. Like, there's nothing better you can do. You want to destroy America, you gotta vote Republican. It's not an accident. Countries with higher unionization rates, of course, have more fucking benefit. But here in America, unions are demonized.
As of 2020, the average crew member at McDonald's makes $9 per hour. The average McDonald's cashier makes $8 per hour. The federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.25, a rate which has not been raised in over a decade and which should not be considered a reasonable wage for any position, considering the fact that a full-time minimum wage worker cannot afford to rent a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States and can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment in over 95% of U.S. counties. Now, the all-too-common response to data like this is something like,
Well, yeah, it's not a hard job. You should just find a better one. Here's a simple question. Should any job, regardless of technical skill require...
Republicans would literally melt the poor. No matter what race they are, by the way, white too. They have so much disdain for the poor whites. Like, they're hogs. They are literal vote pigs for them, right? Like, they would literally melt the poor for biomatter if they can make a tidy profit off of it. You understand? You think about ALEC, the American Enterprise Institute, the Heritage Foundation. These motherfuckers would literally, and have very successfully over the course of the past couple decades, like, dismantled all labor protections whatsoever. The Federalist Society then also has put in place, Supreme Court justices that would declare it constitutional from an originalist perspective, of course. The Founding Fathers actually wanted to melt the poor for biomatter. You don't understand this. You just don't have the big legal brain that I have. I'm a constitutional law professor and an originalist. Like, they would literally do that if they could. Okay, if they could get away with it, and they, in a lot of circumstances, do get away with it, they would do that. Okay? They would melt you for biomatter if they could make a tidy profit off of it.
Required pay workers so little that they cannot afford to rent even the smallest place to live, not to mention other necessities like utilities, food, and medicine. Absolutely not. That is inhumane and cruel, especially coming from the second largest employer in the richest country on the planet. Other notable objections include McDonald's has to make a profit. If they pay their workers more, they might go out of business. First of all, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, your company should not be in business. End of story. But again, McDonald's is not struggling to make ends meet. In 2019, McDonald's raked in $21 billion in revenue. But no matter how obvious the exploitation of low-wage workers, Americans are hell-bent on praising the very companies doing the exploiting. Take this article on Reader's Digest, for example. It's titled, "This is what McDonald's workers really get paid." You see that and think, oh, nice, finally some news showing how poorly these workers are compensated. Then you scroll down and nope, they're actually praising McDonald's, saying things like, the food chain is also great for paying their workers fairly, and McDonald's is one of the highest paying fast food chains in the United States. This level of sycophancy is insane. In $8 or $9 an hour is some of the highest.
When I think about McDonald's, I think, well-paid workers that are happy to be there. That's what I think of.
Pay in the industry, that doesn't...
Corporate journalism is so fucking disgusting. And then people get mad. And then people get fucking mad at me when I say, like, the media is absolutely an institutional propaganda arm of capital owners, okay? Like, the media can be good, right? There are great journalists out there, but there are few and far between. Like, this is not normal. They are an anomaly, all right?
Doesn't indicate that McDonald's is paying fairly. It indicates that a massive chunk of the population is being paid poverty wages. This is where taking an international perspective is so critical. If all you see is feel-good stories about how well McDonald's workers are paid...
Also, this is literally making me crave McDonald's. I haven't had it in fucking years, but...
You'll never know how badly American workers are actually being treated. Let's take the same company, the same position, but in a different country. Here's a McDonald's in Denmark. The average McDonald's worker in Denmark, for doing the same low-skill job, makes $22 per hour. Well, hold on, you hear Reader's Digest scream from across the Atlantic. McDonald's workers in America get paid vacation days after just a year of work. Wow, enticing. In Denmark, when you're hired at McDonald's, not only are you making nearly 3 times what you would make it in America.
Are you ready for the chug counter to this? Are you ready? Well, actually, it's only off the back of our workers that McDonald's, the great American corporation, is able to offer benefits to those goddamn socialists over in the EU. Understand me? Because that is unironically the argument that Steven Crowder and other idiotic Americans, and neoliberals for that matter, actually, I've debated neoliberals on the subject as well, make about why we pay 10x the price for insulin here in this country, when if you go over the fucking border to Canada, you pay like a fraction of the price. And they say it's because we're subsidizing the rest of the world. This is how devastatingly cucked the American working class is. This is how devastatingly cucked Republicans are. America first, baby! We will allow an American corporation to exploit our labor force so they can go and do So they can go and abide by the labor protections overseas, brother.
American Mickey D's, you also instantly have access to a full year of paid family leave and a pension. No slaving away for a year to prove your value to the company. You're hired and you're treated fairly. Simple as that. McDonald's can afford to compensate all their workers like this, but they won't. Because U.S. laws allow them to exploit American workers to the point where they're basically slaves, earning the bare minimum to survive, paying all of their income and often going into debt just to pay rent, and having no way to escape this vicious cycle because they're working such long hours. This is the case across all of America's low-wage jobs, of which there are many. The plight of the low-wage worker is incredibly dire, and all you have to do to understand that is look at how those same workers are treated in other wealthy countries. Let's move on to another topic. Work-life balance. Fair wages are definitely part of this equation. If you're paid fairly, you don't need to work a second job, which will free up your time to be spent elsewhere. But we're going to focus on other metrics, specifically the length of the work week, vacation time, and parental leave. Let's start with the U.S. Most Americans would say that 40 hours per week is full-time. That seems to be the general consensus. But, in keeping with the country's exploitative labor practices, the hilariously named Fair Labor Standards Act does not actually define what qualifies as full-time. That's left up to the employer. Okay, why does this matter? Well, think of your past part-time jobs. Did you get any benefits? Healthcare, 401k? Probably not. Most benefits, when they're offered at all, are reserved for full-time employees. Companies don't want to provide benefits because they affect their bottom line. America is all about cutting costs, and
remember to report anyone that mentions unionization to your Amazon supervisor. Oh, of course. Of course, brother. Of course.
Providing workers with fair compensation is a cost. So, imagine you apply for a full-time job at Best Buy. You're offered the job, but they tell you they only have part-time positions, but they can give you almost full-time. They make it sound like they're doing you a favor, offering you more hours than normal part-time. But this is just another example of employers exploiting their workers. If you work 37 hours per week, you're essentially a full-time employee, but they don't have to provide you any sort of benefits. No health care, no vacation, nothing. This is a common practice. Companies will hire people, but keep them just below the threshold for full-time to avoid providing fair compensation. I've seen it happen. I used to work at Best Buy, and they would do it all the time. And that's just the companies who are still trying to appear generous. Others will simply not offer benefits at all, or set the...
Dude, whenever people say there is no minimum wage in Denmark, I lose yet another brain cell. Like, I lose more brain cells when I hear Republican talking points. I wonder why there aren't technically any, federally mandated minimum wage restrictions in countries like Finland, for example. I believe Finland doesn't have a minimum wage either. I wonder why there isn't state mandated minimum wage. Oh, because when you look it up, the union contracts actually encompass nearly the totality of the labor force. If it's not already 90% plus that's already unionized, and therefore a minimum wage would actually lower the fucking the price that unions are able to contractually get through collective bargaining agreements with their capital owners. It's such a disingenuous, horrifically fucking brain-dead thing to be like, well, Norway doesn't have minimum wage. Oh, okay, well, that's great, dude. You're comparing an empire versus a village. Yes, here's the difference, though. That village is happy, and this empire has slaves, and you are one of them, and you're literally defending the empire right now that is enslaving you. That's the difference, you fucking moron. Okay? It's not a village in Denmark either, but it doesn't matter. I'll go on your fucking terms too. You're not American, you're Turkey, go home. Only in America do fucking idiotic Americans turn around and say, hey, advocating for more rights and more benefits for the working class? Well, fuck off. That's not American, goddammit. I love working a minimum wage job that hasn't fucking functionally increased, with the exception of one time, since the 1970s, and when adjusted to inflation is worth less than whatever the fuck I'd be making in my daddy's time. Fuck you. That's un-American. I want to work every single day. I don't want to have any paid benefits. or any paid time off or paid sick leave. Okay? Fuck you. Go back to Turkey. Go back to your own goddamn country. Only in America do the American working class say shit like that. Okay?
Their full-time positions at 50 or 60 hours per week. Sales positions are notorious for this. They'll often say, well, we expect you to work 40 hours, but all the top sellers are working 60 to 70 hours per week. This is coercion. They're trying to pressure you into working more hours to benefit them. And the compensation is never what they claim it will be. By allowing employers to define full-time work, American workers are held captive by corporations, forced to either work absurd hours to qualify for full-time benefits or find a second job to help cover the cost of things like health insurance. Both of these options lead to a terrible work-life balance, and as real wages have decreased and benefits have been offered less and less over the years, huge numbers of American workers have developed an unhealthy work-life balance. For example, in 1960, when workers had real bargaining power, only 20% of American women worked. Today, 70% of children live in households where both parents are working full-time. Where does all this lead? As of 2020, over 85% of American men and 66% of women work more than 40 hours per week. We work 137.
Not true. There are chuds in every freaking country. USA is their perfect world they would like to have locally. The difference is, the chuds are louder here in the United States, and our fucking capitalist media actually heightens their voice. Okay? That's the difference.
More hours per year than Japanese workers, 260 more than the British, and 499 more hours per year than the French. Why do other countries have such a better balance? Because many of them have laws that cap the length of the full-time work week. Companies are required to pay their workers fairly and allow enough time off for employees.
The best part about this, of course, is that your entire health insurance, if you are eligible to go full-time, your health insurance is tied to your job. If your job has allowed you to get that benefit, and as soon as you're fired for, I don't know, maybe taking too many fucking sick days off or some shit like that, then you're fucked. You don't have health insurance. Oh wait, but the Democrats have a perfect solution for that. That corporate health insurance that you were literally paying with your paycheck. Well, now you can pay for that corporate health insurance in order to not get kicked off your coverage by what is known as COBRA. Let me tell you how much I pay for my platinum healthcare package that I got from the Young Turks. $666 a month. That's exactly how much I'm able to pay for my COBRA benefits so that I don't get kicked off my health coverage that I already had. Yeah. If I didn't have Twitch, I'd be so fucked. I would be perma-fucked. Forever. And I almost got kicked off that coverage too.
To maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's not the case in the U.S. Vacation time is a similar story. Whereas many other countries mandate that employers provide paid vacation and sick days, the U.S. does not. In every industrialized nation, workers get more paid vacation days and holidays than in the U.S. Here's a depressing graph to illustrate just how poorly we treat our workers. France, 31, Spain, 34, Austria, 38, America, 0. 0 paid vacation days, 0 paid holidays. And remember, these are the mandated figures. Every Austrian worker gets a minimum of 38 paid days off per year, even in the worst possible.
That's communism, brother. That's fucking disgusting. That's disgusting. I'm getting triggered thinking about that, brother. What the fuck? 38 days? What the fuck are they doing? These goddamn Europeans.
Employment situation, they'd still get 38 paid days off. In the U.S., many workers are lucky to get Christmas or Thanksgiving off at all, and the odds that it's a paid holiday? Next to 0. Let's move on to our final comparison, paid parental leave. Many Americans aren't even aware this is a thing, so let me explain. When an employee of a company has a child, sometimes they're offered parental leave, a period of time where they can stay home from work to bond with and take care of their new baby. This greatly benefits the employee, the child, and, in the long run, the company, because the employee will be happier, less stressed, and more loyal to the company. Of course, offering paid parental leave doesn't benefit corporations in the short term. And if there's one thing that encapsulates the American business philosophy, it's short-term gains over all else. So it won't surprise you to learn that the US is the only industrialized nation on the planet that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. This may be shocking to my American viewers because being able to get paid to spend time with your newborn child sounds like an impossible dream in our
We literally made fun of a baseball player for wanting to get paternal leave. Like, the entire country got together and made fun of a new father for wanting to spend time with his child. We're like, what are you, a fucking woman, dude? What are you, a pussy? Paternal leave? What? The fuck is that, dude? What are you gonna milk the baby? Huh? With your titty? Is that what you're gonna do? We're so fucking dumb. We're the dumbest country on the planet, dude. Literally the dumbest. And we think we're the smartest, too. We think we're so fucking smart. Yeah, fellas, is it gay to demand paternal leave? Exactly. Or maternity, it's not paternity leave, isn't it? Isn't it like when the fucking father asks for maternity leave? Yeah, I said it right. Oh, you want free healthcare? Be a man, pussy. Imagine eating doctors. Exactly.
dystopian labor market. And honestly, it probably is impossible in our current America. We're so invested in self-destructive capitalism that even suggesting the possibility of paid parental leave would put U.S. politicians out of a job. That's not the case in the rest of the industrialized world. In fact, every other OECD nation, and even in many third world countries, new parents are guaranteed at least several weeks of leave.
And then we get mad. In America, we fire women for having children. We look at women as like a person that we probably shouldn't elevate in a career, specifically because like they might fuck around and like literally fuck around, by the way, not figuratively, like literally fuck around and like have a child, you know? And look at their career prospects, and then we turn around and we're like, dude, it's just because like women aren't just this smart or as strong. They're just not as strong as men. Like they wouldn't be able to carry as many boxes. Well, okay, I'm applying for a position in a Big Four accounting firm. What the fuck does picking up boxes have to do with anything, idiot?
Take a look at a few of them. Ethiopia, a country with an annual gross national income of under $900 per person, offers 90 days of leave with 100% pay. Madagascar, 14 weeks at 100%. Afghanistan, 90 days. Denmark, 52 weeks. Norway, 56 weeks. France, 16 weeks at 100% pay for your first child, up to 26 weeks for your third, on top of 104 unpaid weeks. Lithuania, 52 weeks at 100%, plus an additional 52 weeks at 80%. Again, the United States does not mandate a single day of paid parental leave, even for the mother, and the father is never considered. This means that workers in America have to choose to either pay the exorbitant cost of childcare or have one parent quit their job in order to take care of the child.
Of course, the difference between this and slavery is that you want your slaves to have children so that you can have more slaves, whereas in this circumstance, like American capitalism is so accelerated where they're like, no, I don't want my, like there will be babies anyway. Like I'm gonna make sure that the people